We traveled east, over the mountains and into the vast deserts of broken lands. As the days passed, my companion told me of himself, that he had once been a great warrior, and that a dark and secret burden now weighed heavily upon him. We traveled for an eternity across that arid wasteland. How long? I couldn't say. And always, a dark cloud seemed to follow us just over the horizon. Finally, the journey ended. We climbed the last bridge. There below us lay our destination. The shining jewel, Loot Lane, with a great sea beyond. We made camp that last night. Perhaps it was the warm desert wind or the sound of the ocean, but for the first time in many weeks, I slept. However, the dreams returned, but these were clearly not my own. I beheld a vision of a great man, the mage, Talrasha. You were there too, Tyrael. I remember seeing you in my dream. His brethren had cornered a great demon, Baal, Lord of Destruction, who had been set loose upon the world. They attempted to imprison the demon within a sacred stone. Yet when their attempts failed, Talrasha selflessly volunteered to contain the demon within himself, completing the prison. He instructed his brethren to bind him within a tomb, buried under the sand, there to wrestle with the demon for all eternity.
Now you know what I seek, Marius. This is my brother. Sleep now. We set out with the dawn.
The next morning, we walked over the hill toward Loot Lane. I had no idea then of the horrors that were in store for me there.
Good day. Greetings, honored traveler. I am Jaren, Lord of Loot Lane, and I bid you welcome to my fair port city. I am glad to know that once again, caravans are free to travel through the Western Pass. For some time now, we have been under siege by an evil power that I cannot identify. Strange, it all began when a dark wanderer came this way, looking for the tomb of Talrasha. No one knows exactly where Talrasha, keeper of Baal, is entombed, but it is certain to be far out in the desert. Now my people whisper tales of the dead rising from their tombs, and horrible creatures lurking amongst the moonlit dunes. Even I have witnessed things which I cannot explain. I've ordered the port closed and all trade ships moored until I am sure that my city is safe. Atma, the tavern keeper, has an important mission for you. Go see her immediately. You'll find her on the other side of town. Now I must return to the palace. I apologize, but I can't invite you in. Things are rather a mess right now. Things are getting worse by the hour. I know everything looks fine, but trust me, it isn't. For trade in magic and the like, see Drognin or Lysander. Drognin is the wisest man I know, without equal in magic and ancient lore. Poor Lysander is nearly deaf, but he's a reliable potion chemist. For travel back west, see Wariv, whom you already know. Our own Farah is a fine and honest armorer. and she can heal wounds as well. Elzix is the innkeeper, and may also have some items to trade. Grays, the mercenary captain I hired to secure the gates of Lut Gholein, keeps order in town as well. There are others here too. I'm sure you'll meet most of them. Just look around.
Now that Andariel is dead, I can return and outfit the rogues properly. Once I've made some trades here, I'll be free to head back to their monastery. Let me know if you want to travel along.
Greetings. I'm Mashif, captain of this ship here. I make port runs around the Twin Seas and occasionally out to Kingsport in Westmarch. I haven't sailed anywhere lately, though. Jaren has ordered me to stay docked here in case of emergency. Oh, I've known Elzix for years. He always offers me a free room at his inn when I dock here, but I prefer the comforts of my own cabin.
Good day. I don't expect this of you, but if you want to help me, I would be grateful. In the sewers below our city, there lurks a horrid creature that hungers for human flesh. The creature has killed many, including my son and my husband. If you destroy it, I will reward you. Please, be careful, though. That beast has taken enough from us already. The sewer entrance is through the trapdoor, just up the street. Elzix and I have reached an understanding over the years. He sends travelers to me for drink and entertainment, and I send them back to him for a soft bed. The travelers often trade their wares for lodging.
I don't know why you people keep pestering me. Grays seems to have this place locked down nice and tight. Not that I couldn't have done the same. I've proven my valor in combat plenty of times. Jaren's been acting strange lately. I can't imagine why he would call the town guards into the palace. If there's something wrong in there, I hope he doesn't expect me to handle it. Hey, don't touch my drink, or I'll bore a hole into your skull with my thumb.
I've heard that you are responsible for banishing Andariel back to the burning hells. I'm impressed, stranger. That couldn't have been easy. My name... I've heard that you are responsible for banishing Andariel back to the burning hells. I'm impressed, stranger. That couldn't have been easy. My name is Drognan, and I know what you're up against, my friend. You ought to look over my inventory of items for trade. I've heard of your friend Cain. He is the last of the Haradrim. You would do well to heed whatever advice he has to give you. Farah and I have been talking about the creature recently. From my studies, I have deduced that it is Radamant the Fallen. an ancient Horadric mummy that has for some reason left his tomb to prey on mortals. I'm doing some more research now. If you check back later, I may have some more insight as to his nature.
I bet you wonder how this town manages to stay safe with all the trouble going on out in the desert. Well, I can tell you that it's got nothing to do with the local town guards. They're all in the palace for some reason. Jaren hired me and my mercenaries to help keep the peace around here. We're not cheap, but we're the best this wasteland has to offer. Ah, Elzix is quite a character. I had a few run-ins with his band of outlaws in my younger years. Now he's as settled as the dunes out there. The Desert Rain Inn is his pride and joy these days. I've personally found some of that devil's victims washed up out of the sewer. Often they are missing limbs or a head, and their bodies have always been skinned. At first, the creature raided the town at night. That's how Atma lost her family. Now we've got him barricaded in the sewers. You're safe up here on the surface, but every now and again, some fool wants to be a hero and heads down to the waste tunnels with a pig sticker.
Must be one of the new heroes who've come to rid our city of evil. Under any other circumstances, I'd be surprised to see one of your kind in this city. But lately... Oh, never mind all that. You know, I used to be quite the scoundrel in my day. I led the fiercest group of bandits who ever terrorized these sands. Nowadays, I run this here inn and pretty much stay out of trouble. My days of adventuring are behind me. We've all fared well under Jaren's leadership. The town has remained safe throughout this whole mess. And yet the lad still seems very upset about something. I hear that the creature kills his victims in order to hack off their limbs. I guess that makes me a less likely candidate, eh? Pass.
How do I know I can trust you, You may be as shifty as that pack rat Elzix who runs the inn. But if you need a potion, though, I suppose I can make you one. For a price, of course. I never patronized the brothels, mind you, but since those ladies took up hiding in the palace, there certainly has been less scenery to feast my eyes on. I hear that beast is after body parts. Does he eat them? Ooh, ghastly.
I know much about the ancient religions. I was trained as a paladin of Zakarum in the Eastern Koras Temple many years ago. Meshif is an honest man as far as I can tell. He has never pestered me about my past. I believe that the creature you refer to is one of the ancient Horadric mummies from the tombs that lie buried beneath the desert sands. It is unusual for one of his kind to be so far away from his resting place. I sense in this entity a restless and malevolent spirit.
Stay a while and listen. Elzix is quite a scoundrel, but I like him all the same.
The Horadrim used to mummify their highest mages and infuse them with spells that would allow them to protect their tombs, even after death. I have no idea why one of them would be acting so malevolently. Perhaps Drognan or Farah would know more about this.
good day.
Good day.
What a waste of undead flesh.
Good. Ah, the lost Horadric Scroll. What a fortunate turn of events. As the last living Horadrim, I alone have knowledge of its meaning. Now, to read the Horadric runes it bears. The Horadric mages, after binding Bale within Tal Rasha, magically sealed off his burial chamber from the mortal realm. Those same mages also crafted fearsome Horadric staves and imbued them with the special power to open the chamber's hidden door. After nearly losing one to the thievery of a rogue sorcerer, they divided all the Horadric staves into 2 parts, wooden shaft and metal headpiece, hiding them separately to safeguard them. The Horadrim foresaw our current plight and designed the hiding places to reveal themselves to worthy heroes like you. Collect both parts of a Horadric staff and unite them using a Horadric cube. Then you may enter Tal Rasha's burial chamber. If you haven't already, tell Atma that Radamant is dead. It may help to ease the weight of her mourning.
How may I help you? As you have helped Atma and all of us, so shall I help you.
I'll put that to good use.
There's nothing the right portion can't cure. Little of what I am able to hear is of any value. But Radamant's death, however, is news worth hearing. I'm sure Atma will be glad to hear of this.
Approach and let's trade. From what you tell me, it would seem that Radamant was bent on the task of reviving his own mummified corpse with the flesh of the living. This is very unusual indeed. It takes an incredible magic power to alter the singular purpose of an undead mind. Perhaps there is a power at work here, which is beyond my ken.
Need some help? You've killed Radamant, eh? That's quite a nice piece of work. If you ever need a job as a mercenary, I'd be happy to sign you up.
Good day. We ran into one of those old tomb guardians when I ran with my bandits. I know they aren't easy foes to face, so you sure have my respect. Have you told Atma yet? You may not...
Good evening.
My ship is your ship. Good job, mate. At night out on my ship, I was often awakened by that fiend's awful moaning. I'll bet I rest easier now.
They say that the taste of vengeance is bittersweet, but I find it to my liking. In addition to my undying gratitude, I have spoken on your behalf with the rest of the townspeople. The merchants have agreed to show their gratitude by offering their wares and services at lower rates. Oh, Jaren wants to see you too. You'll find him in front of the palace.
Yes? Oh, Radamant the Fallen, is it? I've fallen off many a bar stool. No one calls me Geglash the Fallen. They might go so far as to say, Geglash, you've fallen.
As you have helped Atma,
Greetings. If you haven't already, tell At.
I need a key.
Yes?
Good day. I know much.
Good day.
Tell me your troubles.
Good day.
Good to... You have quite a treasure there in that Horadric cube. According to Horadric lore, the cube can restore a Horadric staff. To do it, use the cube as you would a scroll. When the cube opens, place both pieces of the staff into it and use the cube's transmute power. You'll be pleased to know that the cube has other alchemical uses as well. 6 gems plus 1 sword transmute into a socketed longsword. You may also transmute 2 quivers of crossbow bolts into 1 quiver of arrows, while 2 quivers of arrows yield 1 quiver of bolts. I must leave it to you to discover other formulae.
It is an honor to serve you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Greetings! The Staff of Kings! You astound me, my friend. You have discovered the shaft portion of a Horadric staff. I trust you know how to use a Horadric cube to unite the shaft with its headpiece. Hello.
Good day.
Allow me to advise you.
Good day. Drognan the wizard will have some idea as to what is happening.
Good evening. This whole place is one big ale fog.
Good to see you. This permanent darkness is very unsettling. It would make navigation by stars easier for me, though.
Good day. Drognan may have some advice on this matter. I think I'll speak with him myself.
Good evening. This unnatural nightfall is no doubt caused by evil sorcery. Drognan might know what we are dealing with.
Greetings, claw vipers. This outer darkness mirrors the inner blackness of their souls. It is they who have eclipsed the sun, I'll wager. They are a venomous band.
I've been researching this lengthy eclipse, and I believe it to be the work of claw vipers. Find their temple beneath the desert sands, and you may find the source of this curse.
Who goes there? This midday darkness reeks of foul magic. My men and I are trying to keep the peace, but this kind of thing really scares people.
Welcome to the Desert Rain. 2 men arrived late last night bearing a story about evil magic. They said they saw a gathering of giant snake creatures performing some arcane ritual. They sound like the serpent men of the desert.
I have heard of your many deeds of skill and bravery. I feel I can trust you with something I have been hesitant to speak of. Drognin and I have concluded that the Dark Wanderer who passed through here recently was Diablo himself. Drognin believes that Diablo is searching the desert for the secret tomb where the great Horadric mage Tal Rasha keeps Baal imprisoned. You must find Diablo and put an end to the terrible evil that has fallen upon our city. Drognin is wise and is sure to have some helpful advice for you as to how Tal Rasha's tomb may be found. It may take you quite some time to find the tomb. May you be ready when you do. My astrologers failed to predict this eclipse. You should seek Drognin's advice.
Good day. The sun has grown disgusted with the terrible deeds it must shine upon each day. Damnation is upon us all. Be very careful, my friend. I think I've seen enough recently not to doubt that these tombs exist. And if they do, they are most certainly guarded by terrible creatures.
I'm sorry, I can't help you much here. Now, if the tombs were across the ocean, then I'd be the guy to talk to.
I've heard legends of the tomb of Tal Rasha, but I thought they were just old tales meant to scare young children.
Oh, I'd go with you to those tombs, but, I don't like all that living dead stuff.
Diablo nears his goal. We have little time to lose. Remember, my friend, that Andariel gave herself willingly to Diablo's cause. It would be prudent to assume that the other evils will attempt to aid their master as well.
Legend has it that Tal Rasha lies imprisoned within his tomb, forever struggling to keep the Lord of Destruction bound. His was a selfless act, although perhaps foolhardy.
When Tal Rasha chose to embody the spirit of Baal, he knew his doom was to wrestle eternally against the will of the greater evil. Look around you and ask yourself, has the battle been won or lost?
If you're going into the deep desert, why not hire a few of my men to watch your back?
So, you're going to search for the 7 tombs, huh? Don't you know that they're just desert legends, passed between merchants and travelers? No one really believes that they exist.
Good day. Tal Rasha's tomb is hidden deep in the desert among 6 others. Tal Rasha's symbol marks the true tomb. If you want to know what that symbol is, you should be able to find it within the legendary Arcane Sanctuary.
Good to see you.
Good day.
This place is as dark as a tomb. What a pity. I was beginning to enjoy the darkness.
So, did you plunder any booty?
There's no trouble a mug can't cure. You have done well to restore light to our world.
Good day. So this is daylight. It's overrated.
Hello. I've been researching the old records, trying to find the location of Tal Rasha's tomb. Though I haven't found the tomb itself, I may have a good lead for you. The great Vigerai summoner, Horizon, built his arcane sanctuary somewhere around here. He was a powerful spellcaster and kept demons as slaves within the sanctuary. He kept a close eye on great events too, such as the imprisonment of Baal within Tal Rasha's tomb. If you could find Horizon's sanctuary, I'm sure that it would hold some clue as to the tomb's location. Though I doubt Horizon is still alive, you must proceed with caution. There's no telling what could be waiting inside. When I spoke of this with Lord Jaren, he asked that I send you to him. Perhaps he knows of a secret entrance or the like. You did well in destroying the Claw Vipers. We are all glad to see the sun return to its former glory. I've been researching the old record.
Greetings. I'm glad that's over with.
Hi there. It takes but one eye to revel in the beauty of our restored sun.
Greetings. When the troubles began here, I allowed the terrified harem guilds to join me within the safety of the palace. All was fine until one night. Screams echoed up the stairwells from the harem. My guards arrived to find the poor girls being slaughtered by a merciless band of hell-spawned demons. My brave guardsmen tried to push the demons back into the mysterious rift from which they came. Ever since, my men have fought a losing battle. Demons have continued to pour through the rift into the palace. Ultimately, I hired Graze and his mercenaries to help protect the rest of my fair city. Drognin believes that the arcane sanctuary lies buried underneath this palace, since Lut-Gholein occupies the site of an ancient Vigerai fortress. My palace is open to you now. Take care. The sun again shines on Lut-Gholein. I'm beginning to like you, traveler. It is well known that there are 7 great Horadric tombs hidden beneath the sands in the furthest reaches of the desert. One of them surely must be Tal Rasha's prison. You must explore each of the tombs to find Tal Rasha's exact location. Of course, Diablo is searching for the tomb as well. No one can guess as to what terrors he has unleashed in his search.
Welcome to the palace.
Yes? With renewed daylight, one may gather the wits that were scattered about like restrictive undergarments in the darkness. A careful caravan gives wide berth to sleeping bandits. If Horizon is gone, let him remain so. Be very careful, my friend. I think I've seen enough recently not to doubt that these tombs exist. And if they do, they are most certainly guarded by terrible creatures.
Welcome to my shop. Claw vipers are fond of magical artifacts. Did you happen to find one in their temple? Horizon found it necessary to lock himself up for all time, just to protect himself from those angry demons. Such is the fate of one who practices the summoning art. That or eternal damnation. There's old summoners and bold summoners, but no old, bold summoners.
Greetings. Drogman seems to have taken you into his confidence. This is good, for you will benefit from his wisdom. Ah, the ancient mage Horizon. He believed that he could bend evil forces to his will. What he didn't know was that evil uses man, not the reverse. The Vigerai still revere him as a symbol of man's ability to triumph over otherworldly forces. The Church of Light, however, cites him as an example of man's folly.
The Viper amulet you bear is actually the headpiece of a Horadric staff. Yes, you have an uncanny knack for finding rare and valuable artifacts. Of course, you'll have to use a Horadric cube to combine the headpiece with the shaft. I very much doubt that Horizon still lives in his sanctuary. He possessed great power and influence over demons, but even that may not have been enough in the end. One of his notoriety cannot easily remove himself from the vengeful reach of hell.
Arcane Sanctuary? That place sounds awful. Even if you find a way into it, what makes you think you'll be able to leave again?
Look, I'm just about as tough and arrogant as they come. But you never catch me trying to tame a demon for a pet. That's just asking for a lot of trouble.
Ahoy, mate. Ah, the legend of Horizon is an old one, especially around these parts. You wouldn't believe the feats and strange events that are attributed to him.
Approach and let's trade. You did well in destroying the...
The only thing in Jared's cellar are the harem girls that have been hiding there since the troubles began.
An arcane sanctuary under the palace? I'd heard that there were some underground cellar levels that Jaren used as chambers for his treasure and such, but no arcane sanctuary.
You did well in destroying the Claw Vipers. We are all glad to see the sun return to its former glory.
Hello. Excellent. You have a Horadric staff. Carry it with you into Talrash's tomb. Find within the tomb the chamber whose floor is inset with the circle of 7 symbols. Place the staff into the receptacle you find there. That will open the secret passage into Talrash's burial chamber. But be prepared for a fight. You'll likely have to kill Talrasha to destroy Baal.
wish I had time to study this bizarre dimension.
Good evening.
Stay a while and listen.
Even a sanctuary such as Horizon's can be breached by the tentacles of evil. Such a haven could have become a chamber of unspeakable horrors. Be wary of what you may unleash.
I've been thinking about the problems in Jaren's palace. Perhaps this has occurred to you as well. If those cellar passageways lead to the arcane sanctuary, then that is where the demons came from. Horizon's haven must have been breached.
Hello. I am certain that you will find the information you need when you find Horizon's journal. I suggest you find it quickly, for Diablo may be getting closer to freeing his brother as we speak.
Good morning. Huh? The horizon is always out of reach, you should know that. Oh, the horizon. Oh, I see. Yes, well, he was insane. Yeah, brilliant, yes, but total lunatic.
Good morning. There was an Eastern mage, of Agerai, I believe, who visited me almost a year ago. He was very interested in the history of this site, and he seemed particularly fascinated with the palace architecture. I gave him a tour. When he found the ancient seals over a passageway in the cellar, he became very agitated. He asked for some time alone to study them, and I granted it. Shortly after, he left with no further word, and I never saw him again. Odd, don't you think?
a deluded fool who got too close to true power.
Seekers of the tomb of Tal Rasha will find it through the portal, but know that the glowing glyphs recorded here in my arcane sanctuary are the signs of the 6 false tombs. The missing 7th sign marks the tomb of Tal Rasha. Of the Horadrim, he might be called the foremost. It was a shining but brief moment for the mage clans when they set aside their differences and worked together against the common enemy. The Horadrim relentlessly pursued the 3 across the desolate empires of the east and even into the uncharted lands of the west, leaving the Archangel Tyrael's hands unblemished. Presuming the 3 to be vanquished, the Horadrim's unstable fellowship began to dissipate. Abandoning their sacred charge to safeguard the 3 soul stones, the disparate mage clans began to squabble amongst each other over petty differences. Their conflicts not only dissolved their brotherhood, but strengthened the evils which they had buried beneath the cold earth.
So, now we know Jaren's little secret. Well, I guess I can see why he wanted me to stay, though. I'm just glad it didn't come to that. Now he tells me to wait some more, in case you need to get out of here. Well, for you, I'll do it. Maybe they'll mention me in the epic ballads, eh? Well, you've got what you're after. Now get a move on before it's too late. My ship is your ship. Well, you've got... So...
Tell me your troubles. You're more the hero than I could have dreamed. Perhaps there is hope for us after all.
Let me buy you a drink. The way I see it, well, it's so pretty blurry. I wish Jaren would have let me in the palace. I would have saved those girls and kicked demon ass back to the fire pits of hell.
Day. Larger forces are moving inexorably towards us. You must now make haste to the tombs. You have found Horizon's journal. Excellent. But I must caution you. The mark of the true tomb of Tal Rasha is sought, if not already known, by Diablo. I needn't elaborate on the implications of that.
Day. Unbelievable. The harem girls are dead? The palace guards been fighting off demons from the cellar? How could that happen without my knowledge? So, Horizon's been dead for some time. I take it you at least found what you were looking for.
Good day. News of the tragedy in the palace is spreading fast. How awful. And to think, this whole time I thought Jaren and his guards were in there playing with the harem girls. You make me long for the days of glory, when I had both hands, both eyes, and more of a foot.
Yes? I thank you for your heroic aid. I'm also glad that you found something you were looking for. The journal should help you find the true tomb of Tal Rasha. Hopefully there is still time to get there before Diablo. Go now, and good luck. The demonic force that was emanating from the corrupted sanctuary has dissipated. I thank you greatly for your help. Now we can look to rebuilding our lives. All will be for nothing, though, if you do not stop the greater evil which is rapidly gaining ground.
Good day. Well, the news going around town is very unsettling. Apparently, we were in more danger than anyone thought. Good work, friend. You may have saved all our skins. I guess you'll be heading to the tombs now. I hear that they're in the deepest desert regions.
Welcome to my shop. Horizon's urinal? Oh, journal. Oh, yes, well, glad you found it. Such a shame about those poor harem girls, huh? I shall miss them deeply. I mean, their conversations, of course. Such is always the fate of those who meddle with evil.
Good day. Faith is stronger than any armor. The shield will protect the body, but faith will strengthen the courageous heart. I feel no pity for that would-be summoner. His terrible ambition for demonic power was his undoing. You merely hastened the inevitable.
Good day. You must move quickly now, friend, for Diablo is undoubtedly close to finding what he seeks. Find the tomb of Tal Rasha before he frees the Lord of Destruction. I hope that this false summoner found peace in death. Unfortunately, it is more likely that he will be dragged down into hell by the demons he was bound to. Let this be a lesson to you. Demonic magic is a quick path, but its powers are seductive and deadly.
Impossible.
Greetings. Diablo nears his goal. We have little time to lose. Remember, my friend, that Andariel gave herself willingly to Diablo's call.
Hello.
Good day. I've heard legends of the tomb of Tal Rasha, but I thought they would...
I thank you for my freedom, but I did expect you earlier. I am the Archangel Tyrion. I came here to prevent Diablo from freeing his brother Baal, but I have failed. Now terror and destruction roam free throughout your world. Even now, they head towards the eastern capital of Kurast, to the very heart of the Zakarum Temple. There they hope to find their eldest brother, Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred, who was imprisoned there ages ago. If the three prime evils unite, they will be invincible. Though it is unclear as to what their aims are, it is certain that they must be stopped at all costs. I am broken, and the energies that tie me to this world are diminishing rapidly. You must take up this quest and prevent the three brothers from reuniting. You must cross the sea and search for Diablo and Baal in Kurast. Now, hurry, mortal. Time is running out for all of us. I thank you, mortal. I thank you, mortal, for my freedom.
I came too late. Now, destruction is let loose upon the world once more.
Good day. Jaren tells me I should take you east to Kurast. I haven't been there for several years, but rumor has it things are pretty grim.
Hello. You have proven to be the greatest of heroes, and I am honored to call you friend. Thank you for bringing peace to our lives again.
Day. You're an inspiration and such a hero that it makes me look twice as bad. You're okay. Hey, just save some glory for us little guys, huh?
It is most unfortunate that Tal Rasha has been consumed by Baal's destructive influence. There are many secrets known to the Haradrim which could be used by Baal against us. You must travel east by sea to Kurast and stop Diablo and Baal before they free their eldest brother, Mephisto. The lands of the Eastern Empire are not the same as they used to be. There's been little word for some time. Speed is of the essence. Go quickly, my friend. May the fates smile on you.
Who goes there? I've heard that your foe got away from you this time. Well, look at it this way. You've got the demons on the run. If you're going to be leaving, then, well, thanks for your help.
Hi there. I heard that Diablo has managed to best you, at least for the time being. I hope you catch up with him soon, and send him back to hell for good.
Greetings. You have done very well. Few could have come this far, let alone discover the true tomb of Tal Rasha. Unfortunately, I hear that Diablo and Baal have eluded your grasp. This is most unfortunate. If you wish to travel east, I have authorized Mashif to give you passage by sea. I imagine he should be very anxious to leave by now. Good luck on your quest, and thank you again for saving my beloved city. You will always be welcome in Lut Gholein, my friend. You have done very well.
Welcome to the...
Never fear, my friend. You did the best you could. I suspect that Diablo and Baal are now heading east towards Kurast. You will find them. I know you will.
I'm sorry things didn't turn out as you had hoped. Go and remember us fondly. You know, you bothered me far less than most.
Good day. This is terrible news. Baal is in possession of one of mankind's most powerful mages, and the Lord of Terror guides his path. They must be stopped, for I am sure they mean to free their elder brother Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred, who lies imprisoned under the corrupted city of Kurast. I fear you are walking into a great evil, but your faith can save you. May you walk in the light always.
The Archangel Tyrael was the one who gave the Soul Stones to the Haradrim 260 years ago. It is highly unusual for the forces of heaven to so directly interfere with man's destiny. But Tyrael was said to act of his own volition. We have never been able to discern why. Perhaps he goes against the consensus of heaven because he doubts our ability to defend ourselves. Or perhaps he sees more threat than his peers. Where the actions of hell often seem straightforwardly bent on destruction, the motives of heaven are unfathomable. Now make haste. Both Diablo and Baal must be stopped before they join with their brother Mephisto. If the three prime evils unite once again, the world as we know it will be no more.
It is an honor to serve you.
Jaren tells me I should take you east to Kurast. I haven't been there for several years, but rumor has it things are pretty grim.